Hey everybody, it's Allie and welcome to our YNR chat for Sunday, July 10th, 2016. This man named Victor Newman confounds me. After 20 years, this man still continuously confounds me. I feel like in a way, I know what it's like to be Nicky or to be one of his children because I love Victor. I want to love Victor, and then I hate Victor, and I can't stop hating Victor. And sometimes those feelings are happening within minutes of each other. Literally, the man had me in tears when he is on Monday's show in the hospital. We open up and he's so weak and he's there and he's with Nick and Victoria and I'm crying. On Thursday's show, he's with Nicky in the hospital. I'm crying. And then by Friday, I'm wishing that one of those nurses would accidentally kick the plug out from his oxygen tank or something. Send him into a coma or something. I'm done with them. It's so many emotions. And I really feel like that sort of, it's almost like the audience is Victor's family, or me at least, because you want to think the best of him. I do anyway. I want him to be redeemed. I was hoping that this week was going to be all about the Victor Newman redemption, and in a way it was, but then we can never fully have good Victor. There always has to be something seedy that's lurking in the background, something devious, something selfish. There's just no way of covering up all of the negative qualities that this man has, even though we had, for instance, those wonderful moments in the hospital. I mean, I loved opening up on Monday's show with Nick and Victoria talking to him, and even though there's been this incredibly contentious relationship, specifically between he and Victoria, Victor is trying to tell them that he loves them and that he loves their mother, and that the whole reason he pushed that guard away was to save Nicky. He didn't want Nicky to be hurt by the bullet, the guard, hit by a stray bullet. He was trying to help her, and he says, I would have done the same for you. I would have done the same for any of my kids. And he gives the same rhetoric line that he's given time and time again. Everything I do for my family. It's about you. Whether you agree with my actions or not, I'm always thinking of you. And it's like, I feel so pulled in by, I almost was completely fooled by it. I was ready to forgive Victor in that instance, and then he also has to get in a dig saying, I do everything for you, for my family, while my family was the one that abandoned me, that sent me to jail. And I understand that. It doesn't wash away everything that Victor has done, though. I completely realize that Victor's feelings of abandonment run deep. I mean, this is a man who was abandoned by his own mother, and now here again, after, in his mind, he's putting his family first and foremost. The family, one by one, kind of came together to send him into a cell caged like an animal. So I can understand why Victor would resent them, but can't he take a moment to understand why they might resent him? I mean, it's such a mixed bag of emotions, and I feel it all. There were a lot of tears, and whether I agree with Victor or not, the one thing I cannot deny is that Eric Braeden is the master. Was he not phenomenal in all of those hospital scenes? He had me. I was just in. I think Eric Braeden is part of the reason why I get pulled into Victor's story and why I give him any benefit of the doubt anytime. It's really about the power of that actor to bring life to that character. So big ups to Eric Braeden over the course of this past week. He was incredible. The other person who I thought was incredible was Ray Weiss as Ian Ward. I mean, who even would have guessed that this guy would become one of my favorite characters on the show? I mean, Ian Ward's villainy cannot be topped. I challenge you to tell me who in the history of Y&R has been a better villain than him. Because, for instance, Sheila comes to mind, but there was something, I mean, like, Sheila seemed very, very purely evil. There's almost this weird lightheartedness and humor about the character of Ian Ward that allows me to accept that he's one-dimensional. We don't get a whole lot of Ian's backstory and why he is the way he is, and I don't need it. He can just be the one-dimensional villain character that I need him to be, because he brings it. He brings the villainy with a touch of humor, with some intelligence. It's a well-written character, and Ray Weiss is the man. I mean, if you have never seen the original Twin Peaks run, he's a very big part of that show, and he's excellent in that as well. It's weird, it's twisted, it's dark. I think it was produced early 90s, I want to say, but it's intriguing. It's one of, if you kind of like mysterious sort of things, I think you would like that show. And if you've seen it, it wouldn't hurt to go back and watch it, especially now that we've been very much acquainted with Ray Weiss as Ian Ward. I think you guys would probably enjoy seeing that too. I just thought he was really, really great this whole week. I wasn't expecting that after he kidnapped Nikki that he would show up at the Abbott cabin where Phyllis was a sitting duck. I mean, Ian walks in the door with Nikki, he's got the gun, so both Nikki and Phyllis are trapped there, which had its own moments of hilarity. I really, really enjoyed those early moments in the week when it was Nikki and Phyllis tied to their chairs and Ian Ward sort of laughing and cackling in the background. And, you know, of course he's being sadistic and he's got the gun pointed at them, but he's being really kind of deliciously evil. And then we have Phyllis and Nikki bickering back and forth and trying to actually work together to get out of this situation. I also wasn't expecting for it to turn into a ransom thing. I mean, honestly, my mind was blown through a lot of the first part of the week. I was thinking, what is going on here? I don't, there's so many twists and turns. I don't know where to look and what's going to happen, where we're going with this, but it was a good thing that Victor just so happened to be able to take phone calls in the hospital. I mean, why not? He's been taking meetings in the prison for months now. Why would he not have a telephone right there for him to take inbound calls? And why, I mean, what did Ian Ward have to go through the switchboard at the hospital to call to get to Victor Newman's room? I mean, he's a prisoner. It's kind of ridiculous, but then again, it's all kind of definitely ridiculous. But Ian Ward insists that he will let Nikki go. Doesn't mention anything about Phyllis. Nobody kind of knows she's there until later, but he'll let Nikki go if Victor pays a $5 million ransom, which Victor handled very coolly and calmly. I mean, if somebody asks you for a $5 million ransom, he's just writing down the account number and everything like it's no big deal. But he also had Meredith's help. Not only was she there to kind of talk with him and help him through the fact that he's just been shot, okay? Victor's just been shot, but he has decided that if Nikki's in danger, and it's especially with Ian Ward, someone who has haunted her, taunted her, and been a really, really a deeply seated source of her trauma for such a long time, he wants to be the one to go help her. So Meredith, despite everything that happened with her, decides to go and allow Victor to escape, to help him escape, to put herself on the line to help get him out of there, which he does. He shows up at the Abbott cabin, and there's this epic showdown between he and Ian. I mean, he goes there, no cops, no nothing. He wants to make sure that even, you know, the cops, nothing that's gonna go wrong that's gonna end up hurting Nikki. I mean, I sort of knew this part was coming, but I didn't understand how deep it was gonna go. I liked seeing Victor versus Ian. I liked the way Eric Braeden kind of played it in a way that he sort of matched the sense of humor of the room. I just think that that Victor's character and Ian's character play really well off of each other. It was an entertaining scene, even though it was dark. But Victor's able to negotiate the release of one of the women, and surprisingly, it was Phyllis first. What did you guys think about that? I mean, I expected that Victor's #1 priority was going to be to get Nikki out of there, but when Victor said, okay, I'll start to transfer this money to you if you let one of the women go, Ian immediately goes over to Phyllis and cuts her ties. And Victor doesn't protest. Nikki doesn't protest. And I thought, wow, that's probably going to go a long way, because as far as Phyllis is concerned, she's kind of caught up in this whole mess. But Victor is someone who hates her and who she hates. I think that it was a really just sort of surprising moment of Victor actually kind of looking out for Phyllis there too, which is it's all very, very intentional, of course. But I mean, for the woman who pretty much single-handedly had more to do with Victor going to prison than anyone else, it was more Phyllis who kept pushing getting Victor caught that landed his butt in jail, much more than his family who testified against him. But Phyllis was there pushing that forward, and she was the first one to be that Victor was able to negotiate the release for. I liked, by the way, that Phyllis didn't want to leave without Nikki. I thought there was kind of a nice little camaraderie between those two women, which might very well come into play in the future. They might sort of hook up again and talk and decide things, perhaps testimonies. We'll see about all that. But Phyllis doesn't want to leave without Nikki, but more importantly, Nikki doesn't want to leave without Victor. I mean, Phyllis is able to hightail it back to Genoa City, but Nikki will not leave. She leaves the actual cabin, of course not before having a moment with Victor that started choking me up. I was getting a little choked there. But then she doesn't leave the actual cabin. She's sort of hanging around outside of it, peering through the window, like fogging up the window with her breath. Just like, Victor! You could practically hear her saying it through the door. But she stays there and she watches him, and it was very touching. I thought to myself in that moment that I am a Nikki and Victor sucker, and I always will be, because I can talk myself blue in the face about how Nikki should not be with him. She should not forgive him. And then it takes one little moment of a crumb of affection from Victor, and I'm back in. That's why I feel like I can identify with Nikki, because it's like I want it to work in so many ways. The primary story of The Young and the Restless is the story of Nikki and Victor. They're one of the most long-running couples, on and off, of course, through the history of the show, and they're the most identifiable and recognizable. I mean, anybody who has any awareness of Young and the Restless, whether they've watched it for 5 minutes or 5 years, 10 years ago, they know Nikki and Victor. And so when Y&R kind of brings those two back together, it is something special. And okay, fine, I cried. I'm not too proud to admit I cried. There's just something about those two, and something about knowing that it's a love that it won't go away. I mean, no matter how exhausted I get with them, it's just, there is still that spark there. I think the actors still work really well together, and I appreciated having that togetherness. Of course, Victor could not just pay the ransom money. I mean, he could have just given him the money and been done with it. Oh, no, no, no. Victor, when it comes to the final showdown with Ian, has to pull a fast one. Apparently, Victor has some kind of deal with his bank where if he enters in an incorrect password, then there's a security breach on the account. It won't go through, and it'll immediately track where the person is who's trying to hack into the account, which is hilarious because I'd love to imagine that he negotiated that deal with his bank on his own. Like, maybe they have that as a prepackaged plan for their rich customers. This is our extra added bonus ransom feature, which Victor took full advantage of today. So he, for crying out loud, the computer's like bleeping and blooping, and Ian Ward realizes that he's been had, and so since the money's no longer on the table, it becomes sort of this dangerous standoff between the two guys where Ian has the gun and he really probably wants to shoot Victor again. Yet Ian realizes that if he does shoot Victor, he's gonna go back to prison forever. So there's this twist where Ian puts the gun into Victor's hand, which I wanted that to be more meaningful, but for some reason it wasn't to me. I was like, well, okay, I guess this is just about showing some level of self-restraint from Victor, because he chooses not to pull the trigger. He actually sees Nikki peering in through the frosted window with her panted breath, and he chooses not to pull the trigger. Of course, then again, we don't know what would have happened if the police wouldn't have burst in. All of a sudden, Dylan and Paul and many other police officers descend upon the cabin, and Ian Ward is ushered off. I mean, I'm not, first of all, I'm glad that Ian didn't get shot, because I was thinking, as like the episode prior, that I was just hoping that Victor was not going to shoot Ian, or Ian was going to shoot himself, or there was something was going to happen to rob me of future Ian Ward. Because I really want that character to come back, but he kind of just got ushered off back to prison. I don't know if we're going to see much from him again. That almost seemed like a climax where maybe he's going to kind of just be in jail for a while until Weiner needs to conveniently pull him up again. I don't know. But then Victor is, of course, taken right back to the hospital. But right before the police burst in, Victor had this moment with Ian where he indicated to Ian that that Ian was Victor's ticket out of prison. So rather than going back to prison, Victor goes back to the hospital, and it's starting to seem like some freaking how this whole situation with Ian Ward is gonna get Victor out of prison. And that's where this story gets confusing for me. I am not going to lie to you guys. If I am totally missing the mark on what's going on with this, it is because I'm confused. First of all, I don't see how, I don't understand how everything that Victor just did, like breaking out of the hospital, escaping from his hospital room with the aid of a nurse, is going to somehow negate the entire crime that he was convicted for. It doesn't make any sense to me. There was also sort of an implication that that's a similar way of how Adam got out of his sentence. I think he was getting ready to stand trial for the Delia thing, and then he rescued all those people from a burning building, and voila, he's forgiven. So I suppose if that's good for Adam, then that's good for Victor. I mean, it's certainly the direction that we're headed in. Victor seemed very sure in that moment with Ian Ward that Ian just handed him his ticket out of prison. And even further on in the next couple episodes, you can tell that Victor knows he's getting out. I don't know how the heck that's possible, but he's convinced of it. And now Nikki has completely changed her tune. As we talked about last week, now Nikki realizes that Victor has saved her life. And regardless of where their relationship is heading, she wants him out of prison now, which is also such a shocking turn of events for her. I mean, Nikki, I do love her and I understand. I'm starting and trying to understand how she feels about Victor and I can't help it. But at the same time, she is like an addict and liquor is not her only addiction. That woman is addicted to Victor Newman. I mean, she tries to talk to Paul saying, well, we got to get Victor out of jail now. Obviously, Victor needs to be with his family now. He's a hero. He's shown remorse for what he did, which if he was showing remorse, I missed it. But Nikki's totally on board with let's get Victor out of prison. Paul tries to talk a little bit of sense into her, but she's not hearing it. I felt so bad for Paul in that moment because it is sort of like watching this abused woman. I hate to put it like that because again, I am a Nikki and Victor fan, but it's sort of like watching her go back into a situation that we know isn't really healthy for her. If I had an indication that Victor had really truly changed, I think that it would be a different story, but the fact is his actions have just still shown that level of wanting revenge, and I don't feel a total turnaround from him, which is kind of what I would want to feel. If Victor is going to get out of prison, I want to have felt for the past month that he was remorseful for what he was doing. I feel like Victor isn't remorseful. I feel like he's been plotting and planning this entire time, and then at the very last moment in 1 or 2 or 3 episodes, all of a sudden he's changed, and it's not sitting right with me just in a storytelling sort of way. I would like to have felt like we're gonna get a different version of Victor when this is all over, but I don't think that's the case. Now all of a sudden, Nikki is just going on with Paul about how Victor has changed and how he's been punished enough. And so that should be enough of a reason to get him out of jail. And that is my poll question for you this week. Has Victor been punished enough? That was Nikki's entire argument with Paul when they were kind of arguing about it, and I wonder if that holds weight with you. YRChat.com if you'd like to cast your vote. Has Victor been punished enough? I mean, I think I kind of fall somewhere in the middle because I want Victor out of prison, but I don't know if I think he's necessarily received a fitting punishment for his crimes. But then again, it's a soap opera. I know he can't just sit there for any more months. I mean, I feel on board for anything that's going to get Victor out of prison. I just wish it would have been a little bit different. I wanted something more emotional, and I just don't feel like I've gotten it. We did, of course, have that wonderful connecting moment where Paul lets Nikki into Victor's hospital room and they are able to talk to one another, and Nikki, she seems so sort of weak and so frail and so satiated from the one crumb that Victor has given her, even though it was a pretty good crumb. He did save her life, but I loved her explanation, saying to him, I was watching you hold that gun on Ian Ward and how much self-control you had, and I thought to myself in that moment, oh, there he is. There's the man that I fell in love with. Oh, what an impactful moment. And I took it as her like looking to Victor as in that moment, the hero, the hero that she saw all of those years ago, who came into the club and saw her and took her out of this lifestyle where she was stripping and brought her into something different and taught her all of the finer things of life. And I feel like that's what Nikki was seeing. I don't think it was about the crime. I think it was about the romance. I think she saw the man for one moment who rescued her once and is yet again rescuing her today. And I'm sure that was so very powerful for her. And of course, I mean, Victor looks back at her and it just says, you know, for all of these years, it's always been you. It's you, Nikki. You're the one that I love. And I was bawling. I was literally taking my shirt and like wiping off one eye with one sleeve and the other eye with another sleeve. I was sunk in that moment into the Victor and Nikki story. It doesn't, though, resolve the issue of Victor being a jerk for me. He still treated her like crap. I feel so confused by him. It's like in the one moment we saw, remember when we had all those flashbacks of him being in, or it was a scene where he was in jail on their anniversary and he was flashing back thinking about Nikki, which was sort of the audience, an indicator to the audience that Victor still loves her. But then he turns right around and really treats her bad. He acts like he doesn't care about her and he says all these horrible things to her and they have these big fights. And I guess it's just that that definition of love doesn't exactly match what my ideal definition of love would be. I want to feel that Victor loves Nikki full time, not just part time when it's convenient for him and when we need a redeeming moment for him. I don't know. The divorce is off. I wish I would have said that 2 weeks ago when I was thinking it, that divorce was never going to actually happen. But it's apparently not. I mean, she says straight up to him, I don't want to be divorced. And he says, I don't want it either. So she's going to call that right off. Can you imagine being Paul? I mean, it's sort of like Paul was the vision of the skeptical audience member too, or he represented that. Because it's like, it is like watching someone march right into something you know is not good for him. I mean, Paul's looking at her like, after all of this, Nikki, you testified against him. You were the one that really, really pushed the family testifying against him. And now, not only do you want him out of jail, but you're calling off the divorce at the last minute? Oh, man. It's all working out in Victor's favor, as it always does. Victor Newman saves the day. In one fell swoop, he's able to regain Nikki's love. He's able to regain the family's love. Even Phyllis and Jack seemed very understanding about him. And now Dylan is telling Nikki that kind of giving her the idea that if the whole family goes in front of the parole board, then they'll be able to reverse Victor's sentence, which is also ridiculous. Like, I could see them reversing the sentence or shortening the sentence or giving him house arrest. But if Victor goes before the appeals board, I guess it was, not parole board, and they just decide, oh, well, you broke out of custody to rescue somebody, so we'll just make all that go away, I'm gonna roll my eyes big time. I mean, I want Victor to be the hero of the story again. It was looking like he kind of was the hero of the story, and I'd be willing to just let it go, like, fine, whatever, just let Victor out of prison, ugh, but fine. To allow Victor to sort of rise up, have his redemption moment, allow for me to love him again, until Adam. Friday's show. You gotta be kidding me. Adam still in hot water. I mean, all this happened at his trial. Adam is unfortunately now kind of in deeper trouble than he was before, because it came to light that he had planned or sort of allowed Ian to think there was a fake escape plan, and that led to the kidnapping, the hostage situation, Victor getting shot. I mean, that whole thing is sort of now put onto Adam because they tried to make that deal with Ian, and so unfortunately Adam's being viewed as the catalyst for the shooting and the kidnapping and all that stuff. It's not going to help his case. I mean, he was already in trouble, and so he goes to see Victor to try to understand what the heck happened at the trial. And in fact, I loved when Adam walked into the room, he pretty much summarized the feeling of what the heck that I had on Friday's show. Like, why did you go to the trouble of setting me up just to testify on my behalf? This doesn't make sense to me. I mean, you had the woman's body exhumed. Don't even try to deny it. You did it. We know you did it. It's disgusting. And then you're just going to turn around and tell the jury that I didn't do anything. You're going to save the day. It makes no sense. So I loved that Adam kind of picked that back up to where my brain was on Friday's show. It took a whole week to get there, but then it allows Victor to unveil the part that makes me want the nurses to kick the plug out of his oxygen machine. He says he basically just blackmails Adam. He says, oh, well, see, you don't want to go to jail? Well, if you continue to not want to go to jail, here's what you're going to do. Excuse me. Exactly what I say. You're going to come back to work at Newman Enterprises, you're going to stay under my thumb, and you're going to like it, and I'll make sure that you don't go to jail, because guess what? I've got the real pages of Sage's diary. They will conveniently come to light and absolve you of any of this crime, but you got to do what I say. What? Again, more blackmail? So that's really what you wanted? I mean, all of this, you just wanted Adam to go back to work at Newman Enterprises? That also makes absolutely no sense to me. This is some big elaborate plan to get Adam to go back to work with you at Newman Enterprises? Not only does that not make sense, but nobody noticed that there was a couple of pages ripped out of Sage's diary. It wasn't like a spiral-bound diary where you could just happen to lift out a couple of pages like on the 3-ring binder and no one would notice. There's missing pages that have been ripped out and nobody mentioned that. That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. I'm so confused and thrown off and annoyed. I was loving Victor, and I really was too. Like up until about Friday, I was like, all right, fine. Let's just get him out of jail. We'll reinvest in the Victor and Nikki love story. We'll let the family re-embrace him. And then he goes and blackmails Adam again, by the way. Ugh, I don't know. And I don't exactly know how the mystery woman is going to play into all this. Is Victor going to get his way and be able to blackmail Adam, or is Kevin going to discover the identity of the mystery woman and get Adam out of it that way? I mean, one way or another, I assume Adam's going to get out of these murder charges, and so was setting up Adam for the murder part of Victor's escape plan all along? Did anybody else notice that Nick and Victoria seemed way more concerned about Victor being shot than the fact that Nikki was off being kidnapped by someone who has tortured and raped her in the past? I mean, it just seemed like Victoria and Nick just didn't seem that worried. I mean, they mentioned it, of course, but I was like, shouldn't the focus maybe be a little more on Nikki? I mean, on Friday's show, it looked to me like Victor was shot right through his heart, but they revealed that it was just a shoulder wound, so maybe Nikki was the one who needed the focus. I mean, they were asking and inquiring. It just seemed like it could have been more, but it should have been all about Nikki. I tell you, I really liked seeing Meredith throughout the course of this hostage situation. She was very upset with Victor on Friday. He completely screwed her over in the courtroom, but yet she loves him so much that not only did she forgive him, but she continued to assist him. And I guess that's what it's like to love Victor Newman. Apparently, once you love him, you can't stop loving him, and you're willing to take any level of abuse to continue to be with him. But I really liked that it was Nick actually who zeroed in on Meredith, because everybody wanted to be mad at her for helping Victor escape from prison, and I can't imagine, or I'm sure that she will end up getting out of her charges for aiding and abetting. That'll probably disappear into the mist too. That's exactly what Victor does. It's like he throws mist on you, and then all of a sudden it's like, what? Huh? Where am I? Okay, what do you need me to do? And it's what happened to her. I imagine she's just gonna get off the hook, but I liked that it sort of changed. Nick specifically, instead of being mad at her, decided to talk to her and had a heart-to-heart, and she revealed that she realized in the moment where Nikki needed him, Victor was going to be there, and that he still really loved her, and above all, that he was never going to stop loving her, and that even though Meredith loves Victor, Victor loves Nikki. She's the owner of his heart, and that's never going to change. So I liked hearing her say that. I thought the actress performed really well. She was really sweet and really sensitive. And maybe even though I've been looking for some sort of ulterior motive with her, maybe it was just simply that she fell in love with him. It's apparently impossible not to. So we'll see what happens to Meredith. I think she is going to stick around for a little while longer. That's what I'm hearing anyway. But you know, again, even though like Nick and Victoria didn't seem as concerned about Nikki, Dylan was. I actually really liked that Dylan was trying so hard to find his mother. He was working with Paul. Paul, in his usual Paul fashion, was being cool, calm, and collected, while Dylan was really freaking out trying to find her. And so I did kind of like that being brought up. Nick and Victoria kind of go back to work. I mean, Dylan is sort of tortured, but I think probably because he has met Ian Ward, he knows what kind of guy he's like. But Nick and Victoria go back to work. Nick's still trying to track down the source of the oil spill mishap, and Summer, importantly, is beginning to question Luca. Finally, not only did he conveniently have her occupied while all of this was going down with her family, but even in the wake of her family drama, he can't help making some sort of snide comment about Victoria being with Nikki. Oh, it's hard to imagine her spending time with anybody else other than Travis. I mean, what a jerk. Did he really have to go there? Did he really have to goat her? You know, or it's Luca's becoming unraveled, no doubt about it, but it's clear too that even though Summer is genuinely going through something's happening to her family, Luca wants to make sure by pointing out the thing about Travis to say, don't forget who the bad guy is here. Don't be mad at me. Don't have any attention on me. Travis is the bad guy. I'm the hero. That's what he wants everybody to believe. But Nick and Summer had a moment alone where Nick implied that he still thinks Victor is the one behind the oil spill, still is wondering if maybe Luca could be the one who's on the inside helping to work with him. But the thing is, I don't know if I believe that. I don't know if Luca's working with or for Victor, because if Victor's be-all end-all goal is to get out of jail, that would not benefit Luca. Nobody really benefits if Victor is out of jail and back at the company. Luca specifically is going to be out on his rear end the second Victor walks back in through that door. I also frankly find it very hard to believe that the entire family is going to testify one by one to the appeals board to, what, convert everything back to exactly where it was before all of this happened? Victoria should be happy that she's now the CEO, and instead she just wants to hand the company back over to Victor? That doesn't make any sense unless she just wants to spend more time with Travis, but Victoria should be happy about her position and that Victor's in jail and that she got what she wanted. Nick should be happy about it too, especially if he really believes that Victor's the one behind the oil spill. Plus, Nick is actually getting to work at Newman Enterprises without just being stuck under Victor's thumb the entire time. And the whole point, by the way, of Nikki wanting to send Victor to jail in the first place was to separate him from Newman Enterprises. She felt like the company was getting in the way of Victor being devoted to his family. So basically, it's not in anyone's interest for Victor to get out of jail. If Victor gets out of jail, then things go back to exactly the way they were before. Everyone in the family just becomes good little soldiers and pawns in Victor's game yet again. It's funny to me that getting held hostage at the cabin was really not even the most eventful part of Phyllis's day. Anytime anybody refers to what happened at the cabin, she's flashing back to the hot sex she just had with Billy on that couch. I mean, she had some pretty high highs and some pretty low lows on that day. Phyllis must be very confusing for her. But there was a very dramatic moment at the end of their hot sex scene wherein she, for the very first time, confesses that she loves Billy too. He said it to her on a couple of occasions and she's managed to dodge it. But this week she tells Billy that she loves him. And then, as soon as she gets out of the hostage situation, gets back to Genoa City, whose arms does Phyllis rush into immediately? Jack. I was very surprised. I mean, Billy was at the athletic club with Jack having a conversation where Billy was being way inappropriately revealing and saying basically thinks Jack is going to end up getting a divorce, or that, Jack's, I mean, he was sort of masking it, but he was also sort of trying to prepare Jack for the fact that he was getting ready to lose Phyllis, and which is just it was so presumptuous. It was such an awkward conversation, particularly since Jack was being so sweet, and he's just the chump of the moment. I mean, he's a chump when it comes to Billy, and when it comes to Phyllis, it's like all of Jack's entire role right now is to just look like a fool. Jack's telling Billy how much he loves him and values him and appreciates that he's his brother and wants to help him, will even give him a loan to expand his business, and Billy is trying to prepare him for the fact that he's going to take his wife away. But strangely, in that moment where Billy and Jack are at the athletic club, Phyllis comes to the door, runs into Jack's arms. It was like Billy didn't even exist in that moment. He might as well have been invisible. She wasn't even looking at him. All she was looking at was with Jack. And I just thought, wow, Phyllis must have really had an experience there. I think Phyllis relies on Jack for her emotional component. I think that the thing with Billy is so very physical and primal and exciting, but when the chips are down, she wants Jack. When it comes to needing comfort, she wants to get it from Jack. And I thought, maybe, just maybe, all of those feelings about Marco and feeling let down by Jack when it came to Victor. Like after the Marco thing happened, Jack didn't really step up for her and fight against Victor. She was sort of left alone to do it herself. And that, by the way, is exactly what it ended up bonding her with Billy in the first place. I think all of those feelings maybe came rushing back to her, probably seeing Victor and knowing that, Victor just kind of actually did save her and help her. And I think maybe, just maybe, she was able to have some level of forgiveness in that moment for Victor and for Jack, and that's what made her go back into his arms. That's sort of my interpretation on it anyway, because she seemed like she was getting ready to leave Jack, and I think that's what prompted Billy to try to forewarn Jack. But I mean, now she's not so sure. Everything has sort of changed in the wake of this experience, in which, I wasn't expecting Phyllis to get caught up in that whole mess at the cabin, but it really did have a strong effect. And so I'm kind of glad that we saw a little something jog her into making a decision at the very least. She decides to tell Billy that, Billy confronts her and comes to see her wondering, why are you not talking to me? What's this? What's happening? I kind of thought it was going to be you and me. And she says she's rethought it. She tells Billy that she needs time to continue to think about it, to which he agrees. And then on Monday's show, we see a preview where he's giving her an ultimatum. So choose, it's me or Jack. What do you want? Which I don't blame him for wanting that answer, but he's sort of getting aggressive. I kind of wonder if we're seeing the end of the Billy and Phyllis affair. I sort of thought maybe that Billy was going to be there to comfort Victoria while she was going through that issue with her mom, but they did have a moment of connecting and sort of him trying to comfort her, but it didn't last. It didn't land quite the way I thought it was going to. It seems like Billy always has to be forced to think about Victoria, although last week's poll question, could Billy still be in love with Victoria? 71% of you said yes. So it seems like that's the consensus, and I'm really glad that I took that poll because I wasn't sure. I think my answer to the question would be no. If I was asking myself it last week, I would have thought, no, I think that they're completely over. But, apparently you guys are picking up on some love between Billy and Victoria, and maybe we are headed back to that. Maybe Phyllis is going to decide to stay with Jack, and Billy is going to end up gravitating back to Victoria, which is too bad for her also because she's just sort of finding something new and interesting with Travis, which also makes me wonder if Travis is going to turn out to be a bad guy, which is going to force Victoria back into Billy's arms. Who knows? It could go a million different ways, but I'll tell you the other thing I wouldn't be surprised about. I wouldn't be surprised if Billy ends up losing Phyllis, and whether he wants to or not. And I think the answer is not. I think he's going to lose Phyllis, but refuse to keep the affair a secret. I kind of wonder if what we're going to see, maybe not, is if I can't have her, then Jack can't have her either kind of mentality coming out of Billy. Mariah wakes up from getting bonked on the head, surprisingly understanding. I don't know. I really thought that was going to lead to something big. Somehow I thought, oh, Mariah getting hit by Sharon is going to be the very last straw. Everything's going to change now. And then nothing, really. I mean, we're kind of right back to square one. Sharon, of course, felt awful that she hit Mariah, but she also is in this weird level of denial about it. Kevin and Mariah have to lure Sharon to the hospital, practically with a trail of candy to get her to go. And Dylan discovers she's there, which just leads to more lies with Dylan, which, by the way, Sharon is becoming really good at lying to Dylan. So is Mariah. I mean, the best thing, I guess, to come out of all of this is that Kevin is somewhat aware now. I really appreciated Kevin getting up into this situation. I don't know, maybe you guys felt he was overstepping, but I really liked that he seemed to be injecting some sense into it, some common sense. I mean, he pretty much told Sharon, you're becoming dangerous, and then told Mariah, you're enabling her, which is true. I mean, this whole situation has to come to a head sooner or later. Right now, it seems like Sharon is on a manic upswing, which I don't quite know what to make of. She's like cleaning the whole house. She's seeming really, just manically upbeat. By the way, I have to ask you guys this. It's driving me nuts. As Sharon was pulling down all of those pictures off the mantle and dusting them crazily, there's one picture that I've always wondered this, and I've never had a reason to mention it. There's one picture that's on that mantle that I don't recognize. I have no idea who it is. It is some blonde woman like holding two twin babies in her arms. Can somebody tell me who that is, please? Who would be the twins? And I don't know who the blonde is. I can't tell if it's Sharon or Nikki. Why would Sharon have that picture on her mantle? If you happen to know offhand what it is, or if you go back and watch that, I would love to know that answer, because I just can't place it. For all I know, it's whoever came with the frame. It's a picture of somebody who came with the frame, but I feel like it's supposed to mean something. There's one of Cassie, one of Mariah, one of Noah, and then some mystery woman holding twin babies. I don't get it. The other thing I don't get is how Sharon can vacuum her house, dust her house, make a quiche, all wearing those strappy high heels and short shorts. Max is not getting better. His surgery did not go well. We are unfortunately not seeing a miraculous recovery from this child. And in fact, he's worse off than he was before. Now he's having memory loss. He doesn't remember what happened with Abby. He's also having seizures. The situation has really it's gone from terrible to worse than terrible. Ben is yet again pulling away from Abby. I was kind of wondering if anybody knows about the actor's contract status. Is he going to be sticking around? I kind of think so, but I had a moment of doubt earlier in the week where I thought, is he just going to disappear with Max or something? But I don't know, probably more than likely what we are seeing is the slow unraveling of Ben and Abby's relationship. And in Abby's defense, she has tried for months to connect with Ben, and there's just something about him where he doesn't want to let her in. I mean, this isn't the first time. It was right after it was revealed, or during the whole question of whether or not Max could have pushed her down the stairs, and then after, it seemed like Ben sort of wanted to blame her for things, and more than anything else, he just didn't want to let her in. It really reminds me of Victoria and how she was trying desperately to hold on to Billy and her marriage after Delia died, and yet she was just sort of slowly watching him slip away into another woman's arms, which I will say, assuming the character of Stitch will be staying around now that Dr. Neville is gone, I can't help but feel that we are headed full steam ahead into an Ashley and Stitch affair. feelings for your wife don't just go away overnight. And I think while Devon is trying to smooth things over with Hilary to save his billions, I think he really still loves her. And could she be more cruel to him? I don't even think so. I mean, she is just downright nasty. Every time he tries to give her any level of affection, which I perceive as being true, she just smacks him away. And how could she throw him out of her room after he brought her that big, beautiful bouquet of flowers? I am such a sucker for flowers. I'm a sucker for Nikki and Victor, and I'm a sucker for flowers. If somebody brought me that big arrangement, had those beautiful peonies in it, I would have been like, oh, thank you, you're forgiven. It's so easy. It's the easiest way to my heart. Just a thing of flowers and I'm done. All's forgiven. But Hilary, not quite the case. She did look really pretty in that fuchsia silky robe that she was wearing. It was almost as if she was wanting to seduce someone who was not Devon while in that robe. It makes me feel even worse for Devon because he comes in and his wife is looking like she's getting ready to seduce someone, and it's obviously not him. Devon, he's almost in the Jack seat where he just seems kind of like a fool in a way. I really liked the conversation between Devon and Esther. In fact, I kind of like having Esther around. It's weird because she's been a character that I just really kind of have not connected with, even through all of these years. And now all of a sudden she's almost become this surrogate for Mrs. C for me. I like the idea of her having known Catherine and living with the woman for all of those years, maybe having some sense of how Catherine would react to things. So I liked that Devon was saying, I feel sort of like unworthy of Catherine's fortune. I haven't done anything with it. I don't know if Catherine would be proud of me. I don't know what to do. I wish she were here to guide me. And I liked that Esther was able to give him a little bit of advice. It's kind of cool having her at the coffee house, and I thought that was sort of a nice moment. I'm wondering if maybe him saying that about not doing anything with his money is maybe going to signal sort of a change in his character. I mean, maybe he's going to try to become more philanthropic, and maybe that will attract Hilary to him, because it seems maybe that's part of the reason that she's attracted to Jack. And I think it seems almost like she is genuinely attracted to Jack. I'm not sure that if it's as opportunistic, because she has the money, she has the power with Devon. It seems like she really wants Jack. I thought we were going to see some kind of immediate change in Hilary's character after she had that treatment in the hospital last week, but it is right back to business as usual. She kisses Jack right on his lips, right in a public place, and I think just probably knocks his socks off, blows his hair back, and then blames it on her medication. Oh, I'm so sorry. It must be. Oh, I will have to report this to Dr. Neville. I never dreamed I would have just kissed you. That's so unlike me. It was kind of beautiful. It was kind of perfect, because as soon as Jack walks, he's thrown back. He's like, what? Sorry. It throws him off. As soon as he walks away, practically runs away, Hilary's got this look on her face like, I mean, she is trying to rope him in, but to what end? I ask you, to what end? It's either that she wants something from Jack, or she really, really is into him. I mean, either way, she's got her eyes laser focused on Jack right now, and for a moment there, I thought maybe he might be into her too. Are you calling me old? That was a very tricky who said it quote from last week. In fact, I had a lot of guesses about who said that quote, but only 5 people guessed that it was Chelsea. I sort of intentionally made that a tricky quote because last week was Jack's birthday week, so I think a lot of people assumed that maybe Jack would have said it. Are you calling me old? But it was actually Chelsea. She was having a conversation with Adam, sort of offering herself to go and talk to Ian Ward, because after all, she is a con woman. And Adam says, yeah, but that was ages ago. And Chelsea says, are you calling me old? So that was a good moment. John Christopher got that one correct, as well as Troy, Sharita, Jasmine, and Becca. So congratulations, you guys really caught a little tiny moment, and you weren't thrown off by my trick. But can you do it again? I liked this quote from this past week. I don't know if anybody noticed or not, but someone said, you can tell me who, Victor has already been shot once today. That's so soapy. I mean, it's like it was a comment in regard to, you know, him being with Ian, and you know, after having gotten out of the hospital. Victor's already been shot once today. Who do you think said that quote? It really sums up the week, I think. If you think you know, yrchat.com is where you can leave your guess. If you leave it on the website, and if you get it right, then I will give you your shout out during next week's YNR chat. Hey, a little bit of casting news. Michael Graziadei, I never know how to say his name exactly, but I think that's right. Michael Graziadei, who played Daniel, is coming back for a limited return. So yay, I'm really excited about this. I think a lot of YNR fans will be too. Daniel, Phyllis's son, is going to come back onto the scene. I wonder if he's going to interact into the Billy and Phyllis affair, or is it possible he is going to maybe have a romance with somebody, maybe with Mariah? I don't know, that's just my first guess. But he's coming down back for just a little bit. I wonder if maybe they're just teasing it or testing it. He should be showing up around September 1st. So we've got a little ways to go still, but that should be interesting. What do you guys think YNR has in store for Daniel's return? I'd love to get some comments on that. Now let's get to the comments that I do have. Actually, on another casting note, Gary had left me a voicemail saying he read an article from Soap Opera Digest that YNR is casting the role of an African-American woman in her 60s named Lucinda. And Gary was speculating that maybe that might be Hilary's mom, which is exactly what I was thinking, Gary, when you said it. I mean, the second it came out of your mouth, I thought, oh, that's got to have some, I bet you that's Hilary's mom, which is weird, and we'll have to do some explaining, because we know Hilary's mom was Ann Turner, who was apparently a drunk who died in a hotel room, I think, and I think she died with or around Neil or something like that, but I almost wonder if YNR is going to twist it so that either Hilary's mom never died, or that Hilary's mom wasn't who she thought she was. But I kind of love the idea of having Hilary's mom on the scene, especially if she's kind of conniving. I don't know, maybe Hilary's mom will, maybe Lucinda will be Hilary's mom, maybe she will hook up with Neil and marry him, and then that will make Hilary become Neil's ex-wife slash stepdaughter. I mean, it doesn't get much more soapy than that. It's all so very intertwined. I kind of like that idea. Michael left me a voicemail. Have not heard from him in a while. He kind of decided to stop watching the show when Jill Farron Phelps took over, but now that Jill Farron Phelps is gone as the executive producer and has been replaced by Mal Young, Michael is back, and he's seeming very excited about the potential of what Mal Young is going to bring to the scene. I think we should definitely keep our antenna up here and see what differences we can tell in the show, considering we've got some new brass. Some brand new people calling the shots at YNR. If you guys notice any little things or big things that seem to be different about the show now, I'd love to hear it. Anna left me a voicemail with something I never would have thought of. Anna says, isn't Dylan supposed to be a hotshot detective? Why didn't he notice the bloody bruised gash on Mariah's forehead. I don't know why that didn't even occur to me. I mean, maybe Dylan was misted from being around Victor so much that he just wasn't paying any attention to Mariah. All of his focus in the hospital was on Sharon. But that's a really good question. Dylan is also in the Jack position, and that he's just becoming the dupe. I mean, around every corner, it's another lie to Dylan. Not gonna lie, it's getting a little bit old. Jasmine at yrchat.com says, I am so tired of Sharon being weak and fragile. 10 years ago, she was a strong, feisty woman. Now, this mental illness has her shot down. I wish she could be smart, strong, confident, and sassy like she used to be. Yes, Jasmine, I miss strong Sharon too. In fact, I kind of almost preferred this manic upswing version of Sharon to the sort of weak and crumbling and weepy and whiny version that we've had over the past couple of weeks. I am so pro strong Sharon. I love her kind of no matter what. I think I'm a ride or die Sharon fan, but I'd love to see her rise up out of this craziness. And by that I don't mean the mental illness. I mean the craziness of the storyline and the lie and the baby switch and all of that, and become strong Sharon once again. We'll see if that ever happens. John Christopher at yrchat.com says, the Sharon Sully storyline is dragging on way too long. I'm getting tired of Sharon's deer in the headlights look on every show, sometimes 2 or 3 times in a single episode. She is not the sharpest knife in the drawer. In fact, she's probably the most dim-witted woman in all of Genoa City. Well, I definitely agree that the storyline is going on way too long. And the fact that it does seem like it's the same story, the same little surprise, the same deer in the headlights look over and over. And as you say, sometimes it's not just once, but it's multiple times in an episode. It is getting to be a little bit tiresome. Like I said, I really thought that the Mariah getting hit over the head was somehow gonna lead us to the truth, but it seemed like it was just another week-long delay, and now here we are right back where we started. But I tell you what, Beatrice called and left me a voicemail, and this might very well be the key. Beatrice's comment might give us the key to maybe some of Victor's motive, and maybe a catalyst toward getting the truth revealed about Christian/Sully. Beatrice says, the real pages of Sage's diary could reveal the paternity secret. Maybe Victor was trying to keep that hidden, but used it to his advantage instead. I love this theory, and it would totally explain things, would make me feel so much better about where we are, because I find it incredibly hard to believe that Victor planned this whole thing with Adam and Ian and all of that from A to Z. Not to say it couldn't happen on the soap, but just to say that it just seems like such an incredible leap. But I like the idea that maybe Victor had this as the ace up the sleeve all along, that maybe he was able to extract those pages from Sage's diary because they contained the secret about the paternity. And as we know, Victor has been encouraging and wanting the secret about that paternity to stay a secret. Victor didn't want to blow that up. He wanted Adam to keep his family, and I'm sure he didn't want to completely destroy Nick's world even more. So maybe Victor knew that, decided to snatch those pages of the diary, and now that they're gonna help Adam, help get him out of the murder thing, he decided to, or maybe like at that point, he decided that he could use it to his advantage to give that to Adam to help blackmail Adam, and also to get him out of the murder charges. And maybe that will end up giving us more info on the baby switch secret. Fingers crossed. Aaron on YouTube says, whoever is writing for Adam now, I love it. Adam for the last couple of weeks has been extra fun, witty, comedic, and sarcastic during this whole trial when in his scenes. And it's a breath of fresh air to watch. Aaron, you know where else Adam was really good this week was in the scene with Victor in the hospital. I mean, just the way he interacts with him, the way he calls like Victor out in a way that no one else in the family and in Genoa City does is really good. And I agree, it has been really good writing for Adam. And I'll add a really good acting from Justin Hartley. He really brings it. Daisy on Facebook pretty much sums up my entire argument for this Victor thing in 3 sentences, which it took me an hour, I think, to say. Daisy says, it seems like YNR is in a loop. Victor shot again. Victor tries to coerce Adam again. Sharon is off her meds again. They need something different, like Summer kicks Luca to the curb. That hasn't happened yet. I tell you, I do agree. It felt like last week was such a big buildup, and now here we are right back at square one. And just in general, does kind of seem like some of these storylines have been recycled. I mean, how many times has Victor Newman been shot? That is a really good question. If anyone happens to know or can recount the Victor Newman shootings, I mean, the big one that comes to mind was the primetime episode from, gosh, I guess it was the mid-90s, the Who Shot Victor Newman primetime episode, which I think was the only episode of YNR that ever aired in primetime. But I mean, how many other times has Victor been shot? There's been so many. He got shot when he was trying to rescue Colleen, or in the way that Colleen died. Patty shot him. I know Patty shot him. And he needed that heart transplant from Colleen. Can you guys think of any other points where Victor's been shot? And I mean, as far as the coercion goes, I mean, Victor has been blackmailing Adam for ages. It's just nothing new. Sandra at yrchat.com gives a really, really good summary. Now, this is a comment from earlier in the week, but I think it still stands and rings pretty true. Sandra says, Victor, although capable of great love, unabiding compassion, fierce loyalty, and unending devotion, is an island unto his own. He will never truly let anyone in. His deepest motives and truest objectives remain within his own thoughts and mind. With this, I believe Victor's plan from the beginning was to frame Adam and blame Ian Ward for the setup. With this train of thought, Victor exacts revenge on Ian Ward. He punishes Adam for testifying against him in court. He appears in court to actually help Adam so as not to seem like an angry father, and now is a martyr by being shot at the courthouse, no doubt in a twisted effort to protect Nikki. Alas, Victor reigns supreme. I really like your characterization of Victor's personality, Sandra, that he is an island unto his own, and that he is never really going to let anybody truly in. I think that absolutely nails the essence of that character. Everything else we want from him is just crumbs. I don't think that we or Nikki or his family is ever really truly going to get what they want from him. It's sort of beautiful in a way, beautiful and tragic in a way, and I think maybe that's one of the reasons I feel compelled to the character. And I think you make a good argument. Again, this was early from the week and a lot has unfolded, but you make a kind of a good logical argument as to how the storyline would have progressed if Victor would have planned the whole thing from the beginning. The only, I suppose, twist would be that kind of we now know that. I mean, we kind of do know that Victor was setting Adam up. I don't know. I guess we don't know. I still feel like we don't know. I feel confused. Maybe I'm the only one who still feels confused, because a lot, like I said, I feel like I can get on board the storyline part, but it is just such a logical leap, and that takes me to Superplex, who left a lengthy and really smart, concise explanation. It was titled "The Logical Incongruities Plaguing Victor Newman's Escape Stratagem." If you go to yrchat.com and check out the comments from last week's chat, you should read Superplex's argument, because it is logically extremely and incredibly incongruent. I mean, it makes no sense that Victor would be able to pull this whole thing off from point A to point Z to get himself out of prison. I mean, it's I suppose looking for logic in a soap opera is always going to leave you hungry and wanting more because there's not a whole lot of it. But I think that's the point of where the story is it gets under my skin a little bit because it's just almost too big of a leap. I'm willing to take a leap, but this is a pretty big leap. Also, by the way, Daisy had left a comment on Facebook, and this made me laugh because a lot of people said they didn't agree with my theory that Chloe was the one behind, or Chloe was the one assisting Victor. I still 100% believe that it was Chloe, but I had a lot of people who thought otherwise. And Daisy says, I'm hoping Kevin discovers that the person who visited Victor is Luca in a wig. Well, you guys think of things and express things and come up with things that I never would have. I think that's the thing I love most about Y&R Chat is getting all of your different perspectives sort of rolled into one ball. And then I present them back to all of you. So thank you for all of the wonderful comments, and I hope you keep them coming. YRChat.com is, I think, where the best conversations kind of take place if you'd like to go there. You can also from there find the YouTube channel and the Facebook page, podcast, all of that good stuff. You can call the voicemail to leave your comments at 309-588-4569. It's wonderful to hear from you. I'm dying to know if anybody knows who that picture on Sharon's mantle was. I would love to hear some more times that Victor Newman has been shot, and of course, if you feel like he's been punished enough, I'm curious to see how that poll will go down, and I'd love to get some comments around that too. So please feel free to chat her back. Okay, I think that takes me to the end, but I will be back next Sunday. It might possibly be an abbreviated Y&R Chat next Sunday, just a heads up. I'm going to try to get started as early as possible because I have a family thing to go to that I wish I didn't have to go to because I'd much rather be chatting about Y&R. But in the event that I get a later start or I just don't have time, I might have a little bit of an abbreviated version, but I will still absolutely talk to you next week. So I will see you then, guys. I love you. Have a good one. Bye.